Well, actually, I started as an actor. When I was 14, 15, I joined a small rep theatre, which was working in northwest London. And at the time, it was around where I lived in northwest London. It was where they were filming Grange Hill when Grange Hill first started, back in '78. And so a lot of the kids that was interested in the arts, i.e. acting, were asked to come along and work on Grange Hill. So I did that for a while, and that was like the first buzz I really got. And I remember at the time as a kid when they used to film things like The Sweeney and Minder was all filmed around that area. So I grew up a lot, certainly in the estate that I was living on, seeing all these things being filmed. So then I went on to work in the theatre when I studied in the States. And I think, like most actors, I spent a lot of time out of work. So I went and got a job on a holiday camp for a summer season. And really from there, got involved in doing stand-up comedy. I used to watch a lot of the acts come down, and I could see how they used to work an audience, anything from like 500 to 5,000 people. And I really enjoyed that side of the business. So during the winter, I used to get a few jobs comparing shows, whether they let me. Sometimes they were like, bearing in mind I was only 16, 17 at the time, there'd be hen nights or stag nights or just general cabaret evenings. And when I wasn't working as an actor, I'd go along and get some few agents who'd like, I'll get Shane to come along, he'll compare the evening. And I used to do that, really, and the whole thing snowballed from there.
Quite a few stand-up comedians who have done other things as well. I mean, I suppose in many ways, people like Brian Connolly, for instance, who started as a child actor as well. Somebody I worked with a couple of years ago, who I'm sure you know very well, is a guy called Jeff Stevenson, who's...
Jeff's a good mate of mine.
A stand-up comic, does a lot of comparing as well. All from that sort of area in London, really. Very sort of similar, perhaps, stand-up routine styles. I don't know, would you say?
I think maybe when we first started... Brian and Jeff are a few years older than me. I remember working at a holiday camp, certainly when I was working out in Spain. Both Brian Connolly and Jeff Stevenson were at the time making names for themselves as stand-up comics. And I think our styles were very similar in the way that, because we'd come from holiday camps, so the style was very jolly. And then I got involved on a different circuit then. I started doing a lot on the London circuit, which made my act slightly go in a different direction. All of a sudden then I wasn't suitable for like holiday camps. And also, of course, Jeff's a very good gag merchant, and Brian was very visual. And I was really neither of them. And they're very good and they're both, in their own rights. But it's funny enough you saying it, because we're all still mates and we still see each other. And we do talk a lot about, the holiday camps and all that. And it just seems to be a bit of a dying thing at the moment now. People coming up through the holiday camps, maybe it's an air of snobbery about it, I don't know.
The other thing, of course, is that comedians particularly can be very protective of their gags, can't they? But I suppose, there's no copyright on any gag, is there?
Of course not, no, not at all. And that was a big lesson I learned, actually, when I first started as a comic, like when I was 16 or 17. I used to watch a lot of comics and see what sort of material they were doing. And even at the age of 17, I remember doing a routine about a mother-in-law. I think, what am I doing? And it wasn't until I started getting more and more experience and I started writing my own material, which was really difficult at first, because trying to go and do a holiday camp where it was almost like going on stage, and the only analogy I can give you is going on stage and singing one of your own songs. It might be as good as an old standard, but they wanted to hear standard. So when you were going on doing stand-up comedy, they wanted to hear gags that they recognised. And for a long time I was left in the wilderness because I wasn't really much good at doing that as well. Even now I've got a terrible memory at remembering gags. And someone can tell me a gag and I'll fall about laughing, and someone will say, "Oh, I told you that a year ago."
Now, what about this career to date, though? I mean, some people find it difficult to make it as a comedian, or to make it as a game show host, or to make it as a West End actor, musical actor, recording artist. You've done it all now. When did the big break come? When did, your career particularly take off?
I felt for me when it turned round, well, there was like several key points. I did a chat show on Sky Television when Sky was first launched with Derek Jameson, called Jameson Tonight. That was on 5 nights a week. And it was then, I suppose, I learnt a little bit about television, or certainly working in front of cameras anyway, because as I said, it was 5 nights a week. I did it for 9 months. So technically I learnt that side of it, behind the camera and working with different producers and directors. And then I did a sketch show at the BBC with a lot of actors, and it was a comedy sketch show. I did 2 seasons of that. And then I was out in the wilderness for a while, and I got asked would I do I don't know if anybody remembers, any of your listeners remembers, I did a BBC show called Caught in the Act, which was another You've Been Framed type Beadle thing on BBC, and it proved to be very successful, yet they didn't recommission it, so I don't want to talk about that anymore. for a long time I turned my nose up at children's television, but the BBC offered me a thing, going live. It was with Philip Schofield and Sarah Green. And I did that. I did a show called Run the Risk, and then it just seemed to turn around. I found a whole new audience, really. But I suppose the major thing was when I did Grease. I mean, for a long time I was touring around as a comic, and I was doing like the odd little plays here and there. And I went along and I auditioned, along with much to a lot of people actually think that I was asked to do the job. I actually auditioned along with hundreds of others, and fortunately got the job. And I think it was then that I suppose people started taking me a little bit more seriously, because they come to see Grease. And of course I wasn't a star of the show at the time. It was Craig McLachlan and Debbie Gibson, and I played a guy called Kanicki who sang Grease Lightning. And they were coming along going, oh, I didn't know he could do this. So, and even now, Martin, I still like to keep people guessing. I mean, I loathe and detest in this country being pigeonholed, because I know there are a lot of great entertainers and artists out there that don't just do what they do. You know, it was like the game show thing. I mean, really, I never ever wanted to be a game show host. I did a deal with Granada Television, and they said the deal was that, you know, they'd let me do a sitcom or a comedy drama, but before I do that, would you like to host a bingo show? And I was like, yeah, I'll do it for a laugh. And it just snowballed from there. And I think what I was really fortunate enough, certainly for me, was to be able to do the game show as well as do the musical. So once again, I wasn't getting pigeonholed, and people would either see me on the game show, and of course each of them benefited each other. Like, you know, of course they saw me on television, they can come and see me do Grease.
Thanks so much for listening to this video. If you enjoyed it, please click on the like button. Make sure you ring that notification bell to be informed of any future videos. And above all, if you possibly can, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you.